Hello everybody out there on YouTube, and today we are doing a 2-for-1 special for this Trolley Tuesday. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done a proper one of these videos, so I thought I'd reward everybody's patience with 2 cars instead of 1. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be doing running videos of these cars, but I'll explain why in a few minutes. So, this is car 754 and car 754. Yes, these are both the same car, but they look totally different, and I'll explain why. So let's wind the clock back to 1926 with this. This is 754 Mark I. So, this car ran in Dallas, Texas from 1926 all the way until the end of the first streetcar era in the 1950s. Car 754 is a Peterwitt car, more specifically the 700 series Peterwitts. And when they were first built, this is what they looked like. They had a double door front. Then, of course, my model's slightly inaccurate. Mine shouldn't have a double door middle. It should have a single door middle and then a small double door at the back. They had 3 doors on both sides, total of 6. And they were one of the few cars that ran with a motorman and a conductor. However, once the 1930s came, as well as the Second World War, all of the Dallas Railway and Terminal Company Peterwitts got rebuilt into this. So this is the rebuilt Peterwitt style car. What they basically did is they took the center doors out completely, and then they kept the single small door at one end and the big double door at the front on the other end, and then they just mirrored it for the other side. And this is how they looked until the end of the streetcar era in the 1950s for Dallas. Now, so far, there's about 4 or 5 of these Peterwitts left in existence. Number 754 is the only currently operational example, and she runs at the McKinney Avenue Transit Authority in Uptown Dallas in the present paint scheme you're looking at. Now, she never wore this paint scheme when she was in service. She only ever wore 2 paint schemes. She wore this, which is the Dallas Railway and Terminal Company pre-war green, and then this is called the diagonal scheme. Personally, I don't like that name because it's boring. I nicknamed this one the mint livery because the way that the green and the cream with the red stripe shape down looks like Wrigley's spearmint gum packets from that time. So I nicknamed it the mint livery. But she didn't wear this livery. The other livery she wore, aside from the regular pre-war green, was the DR&T white and red, I believe. And this is actually the paint scheme that she arrived to McKinney Avenue with when she was fully restored for the first time. And this car got rebuilt a second time at McKinney Avenue. And what they did... Now, with most streetcars, they have a standard air brake stanchion with a lever, and then you have your control stand. Well, as the story goes, McKinney Avenue wanted a streetcar that operated with a computer system, kind of like the cars in New Orleans do on the Riverfront line. And they actually contracted the Riverfront line to build them a special control stand and computer program to run the car off of to make it a little bit more efficient. And they replaced the old DC motors with AC motors to make them supposedly smoother operating. So what ends up happening is that some of the people at McKinney Avenue, who are to remain unnamed, thought it would be a better idea to develop the streetcar software on their own. And eventually they decided to not pay the Riverfront line for their services in developing the program. And so they took their program and their special control stand and said that they would never do business with McKinney Avenue ever again. And what ended up happening from there, they put their own software in it, which supposedly is supposed to be more efficient, but it really isn't. The car operates with just the control stand. It does not have an air brake lever anymore. And the way that the control stand is positioned, anytime you move it up or down is supposed to dictate the speed. However, because the computer system is self-developed, it doesn't necessarily register 90% of the time. When I worked at McKinney Avenue once upon a time, my first day that I was on the job, I had just finished watching the mandatory, drug PSA video from the Transit Administration, or Federal Transit Administration, and I was walking to the door to go from the office into the car barn and then go out to a streetcar to start my day when 754 came screaming into the barn, smashed into car 122, and then sent it flying into car 636 and sent it into the back garage, making a massive dent, which is still visible to this day. Supposedly what had happened with 754, because its control stand is delayed in registering its movements, it has a special button that allows it to creep into the car barn. And the motorman who was operating it wasn't necessarily paying attention. He kept hitting the button, but he wasn't hitting it for long enough. And then he decided to use the control stand and he notched it all the way up and then back down. But there's a problem. If you notch it all the way up and then back down to 0, nothing will happen. If you notch it all the way back up, but you go into the neutral position, it'll carry out the function, but it won't prolong it. So think of it like whenever you hit the button, the car will, and if you put it back to neutral, it'll go forward and then it'll stop. If you hit it all the way forward and then to 0, the car stays still. If you hit it all the way forward and leave it forward, it'll continue to go forward. So when it went in, it shot around the corner and bam, that's how that happened. Now, a lot of people ask what happened to the other cars. Well, the more famous Dallas Peter Witt that's publicly known is car 707. It used to be in the Dallas Spaghetti Warehouse building, which, fun fact, I ate at that very building in that very car when I was a lot younger. So even before I knew it, I was already being familiarized with streetcars. So that's something. Unfortunately, that car got taken to pieces when it was quote unquote rescued, and it's never been seen since. Last I checked, the fronts of the car were in one piece, but the sides were cut in half. And then there's another DR&T Peter Witt on display. I forget its number, but it's on display at the Monroe Car Barn shops where the old Texas Electric used to run. It's now the Dallas Area Rapid Transit Police Headquarters. And if you call and ask them very politely, they will allow you to come in and tour the car. There is another one of these cars over in Wichita Falls, which was saved by Johnny J. Myers and a couple of other transit historians. But unfortunately, before the museum closed for the first time, it was mistakenly assumed that the car was an old Wichita Falls Transit Brill car. Keep in mind, at this point in time, this was literally just a shell. It didn't have a floor, it didn't have a roof, nothing else. So, yeah, when they restored it, they repainted it into those colors, and then the museum eventually stopped working, to put it lightly. But thankfully, it's been reestablished this year, and they are going to be going through and reassessing all the equipment. So hopefully that Dallas Railway and Terminal Company, Peter Witt, will be saved 100% and restored to a proper appearance. Now, as for car 754, where did it come from? It got sold to a family who collected a bunch of railroad equipment. Their name currently escapes me. I used to know the story completely by heart, but since I haven't done anything with McKinney Avenue in a long time, I've sort of forgotten about it. But essentially, it got built into a playhouse for this couple's kids, and then their kids grew up and had grandkids, and their kids played with it, but then the grandkids grew up, and they didn't have any kids to go and play in the streetcar with. So it was donated to the McKinney Avenue Transit Authority, and it has been there ever since. Now, here's a good question. Why build both versions of the car? Well, it's pretty simple. I wanted both cars because I wanted a Peter Witt, and I wanted the car that I ran with when I worked at McKinney Avenue. Now, as for why I can't show you video footage of these cars running, I already have a video of 754 running because this is a 2-rail DC streetcar. If you notice, there's no pickup rollers and the wheels are insulated. And that is because they are actually wired up to this pole. This is a real overhead pole, and it works. So this car only works on an overhead layout. So, and I don't have one currently at my house that functions. So, yeah. But this one, this has only recently been rebuilt. The chassis came from one of my interurban cars. It uses a Pitman motor drive, and right now it's having a shorting issue. The car body itself is a white metal body kit. So I had to go and basically epoxy the whole thing together. And I'm still reworking that, but it does run sometimes. But eventually I do hope to get video footage of this thing running. Also, this is the heaviest car that I own in my entire streetcar collection in terms of models. It weighs nearly 4 pounds. Compared with this, which barely weighs half a pound. So, yeah, big heavy thing. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next Trolley Tuesday.